Hello and welcome back to Lesson 2, where we will have a look at Photoshop and the way I use it with my shoe design renders. For this lesson, I'd like you to download all the files I have supplied first. I will break this lesson into 3 short videos. The first will be a short tour of Photoshop and an explanation about image size. In the second, I'll run through the process of choosing images and retouching them in Photoshop. And in the third video, we'll apply the new pattern fills to the shoe we have been drawing. So, first I'll open Photoshop. I'll also open those files that you downloaded. File, Open, and here they are. I'll select them all. Let me give you a little bit of background on the differences between Photoshop and Illustrator, and what we use each of these programs for. Illustrator is what we call a vector program. Drawings are created by putting down anchor points and are joined by paths or lines. The lines are shaped by handles into curves. These curved lines are called Bezier curves. Bezier curves do not distort when scaled or rotated. Illustrator is great for doing precise technical drawings. It does have a certain aesthetic that can look clean and stylized, but not natural, like a hand drawing or render. In my many years of designing, I have not found this a problem, as the benefits of having a sketch that can be used as a color-rendered selling tool to a black and white technical drawing are very useful. Photoshop is classified as a raster or a bitmap program. Remember, we rasterize the Gucci trim to maintain the smoothness of the gradient, as opposed to expand. Rasterized or bitmap images are made up of pixels. I will give you a more detailed explanation of this later. This kind of image is best suited to photographs, and as we will be using it for realistic-looking textures. The structure of the image is laid out in a grid of squares or rectangles of color. Raster or bitmap images do not scale or transform well, as they are constrained by the size and shape of the pixels. Let me start by giving you a little bit of an overview of the Photoshop workspace. When you open Photoshop, unless you have changed this in the past, you would usually have the Essentials workspace open. I like Essentials, but I prefer to collapse and narrow the panels over here. I will also make the Tool panel double. As you can see, things are quite similar to the Illustrator workspace. We have the drop-down menus, the option bar, and all the files that are open here. The panels I like to have open are the Layer panel and the History panel. Like Illustrator, when you rest your cursor on the symbol, it tells you what that panel is. These are the 2 panels I use the most, so I've undocked them from the other panels and I'm docking them together. In terms of preferences, you'll find the preferences in the Photoshop drop-down menu on a Mac and at the bottom of the Edit menu on a PC. Let me go down the list here. I'll first change the interface to a lighter grey. This is my personal preference. Now, here in File Handling, I'll save a recovery document every 5 minutes. As you know, this will only save the document if Photoshop happens to shut down or crash while you're working on it. In Performance, I will make the history states about 200. This is the amount of steps recorded. In Units and Rulers, I change this to centimeters. And that's all I'll do here. I'll click OK. We can also view all the open files in a grid, so you can go to Window in the drop-down menu, Arrange and 6 up to view all 6 files at once. You can save this workspace too. Over here on the far right of the option bar is the choose Workspace symbol. Here you can also save your new workspace as we did in Illustrator. I'll just go to New Workspace in the drop-down menu and name my workspace. Let's have a look at some of the tools now. I'll work with the denim swatch first, starting with the Move tool. This is like the selection tool in Illustrator. First, I'll make this layer editable. I'll go to Layer in the menu bar, New Layer from Background. Now I can use my Move tool to move this around. I can also select options for the Move tool here in the option bar. And my absolutely must-have option is this here. Automatically select a group or layer by clicking on a visible pixel. This is very useful as we will be working with layers in Photoshop, and this will help you easily move between layers. Let's have a look at the crop tool next. This one you'll be very familiar with, as you would use this when editing photos. It's the same process here. The rectangle marquee tool. I use this for selections as well as the lasso tool, but these are best explained when I'm showing you how to do certain edits, as are the clone stamp and spot healing tools. I find understanding image size really important in Photoshop. I'll quickly talk you through how bitmap image sizes are measured. These are done in pixels. What is a pixel, I hear you ask? It is the name for the smallest point in a raster or bitmap image, a picture element. So when I zoom right in, each one of these squares is a pixel. Now, the overall pixel dimensions will depend on the final use of the image. For example, if you want to print a good quality 15 centimeters by 10 centimeters or a 6 by 4 inch photograph, you would want the pixel dimension to be at the very least 1800 by 1200 pixels. This would be a 300 ppi image, or pixels per inch. But if you were emailing that image to be viewed on a phone, you could get away with a much smaller image size or pixel dimension, say 432 by 288 pixels. That would be a 72 ppi image. You'll know that your new smartphone might take an 8 meg picture. This is the overall quantity of pixels in the image. So you would times the two pixel dimensions by each other to come up with the quantity of pixels. When I prepare an image to use as a fill in Illustrator, I usually experiment a little. The following is a list of variables I think about. 1. What is the size of the pattern repeat image now? 2. How does this original scale look in my drawing? 3. What scale would suit when I fill my shoe with this repeat? And 4. What kind of clarity am I comfortable with? Sometimes, if I make my resolution, the pixel dimensions, too low, it can look blurry in the final drawing. The thing to note here is that there are no hard and fast rules, and it will depend on each situation. Now, in Photoshop, let's have a look at the image size dialog box together. We'll have a look at the denim, but I prefer to make this view bigger. I'll quickly go back to the window drop-down menu, Arrange and Consolidate All to just have the file I'm working on visible. You can see all the other files open here. Zooming in, you can clearly see each of those pixels, can't you? I'll check what size this image is now. I'll go to Image in the drop-down menu and Image Size to open a dialog box. Here we have the following information: the pixel dimensions, 660 pixels by 218 pixels, the centimeter size, and the resolution, 72 pixels per inch, ppi. This is the standard size for an image viewed on any digital screen. Personally, I find it easier to view the swatching situation, to understand the size of the image. I have put this file untouched into Illustrator and loaded it as a pattern swatch. Here I will put the original denim repeat into this shoe. Can you see how large the scale of the denim looks in the drawing? This certainly needs to be scaled down or made smaller. I have scaled this or shrunk this to 20% of its original size, and it suits the size of my shoe drawing better. Because I've scaled this denim or shrunk the size of the actual denim, I've made the resolution a lot higher. In fact, I've effectively made the pixel dimension or resolution 5 times higher. This is not that necessary, and if you were to fill a range of 5 shoes with this in the same file, your file could become very large and would need a lot of processing every time you do something or save the file. This usually slows you down quite a lot. So, let's have a look at what resolution is. This is the clarity of a bitmap or raster image. When we reduce the image scale in Illustrator to 20% of the original scale, it makes the resolution 360 pixels per inch. We need that sweet point that gives us the clarity in the pattern but does not slow down processing. I'll go back to Photoshop now. How did I work out the resolution was so high when I reduced the scale? Photoshop kindly does this for me. I'll open the image size dialog box again and make sure that resample is unchecked. Now, can you see here where I have centimeters? If I go to the down arrow, I have the option of changing this to %. I'll change the percent to 20. Can you see it changes the resolution from 72 pixels per inch to 360 pixels per inch, but the image size and dimensions remain unchanged. I'll accept this and open up the image size dialog again. Can you see that the percent is back to 100? I'll change this back to centimeters. Now I'll check the resample option here, and when I change the resolution to 150 pixels per inch, you can see the image size and dimensions of the image change. It is now 275 pixels by 91 pixels, as opposed to 660 pixels by 218 pixels. But the centimeter size remains unchanged. The file itself is smaller now. We'll go back to Illustrator and have a look at how this looks in the shoe. Effectively, there is very little compromise on clarity, but your file will work a lot more efficiently now. Does this make sense to you? Please feel free to question me further if you need to. I know this is usually a hard concept for us creatives to get our head around, but hopefully, as we proceed through this lesson, the concept will become clearer. Have a practice with another file, and I'll see you in the next video.